Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hi, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Bill.
And welcome to episode 177 of Adventures and Mousecapades. This week, we're doing something a little different. You'll notice Alicia's not here, but I am here with my best friend, former Disney cast member, Bill. As you may recall from episode 77, Bill started off as a street sweeper in Disney's MGM studios. Yes, I said that right. And worked his way up through the company, ending as the finance partner overseeing both water parks there in Florida. We met Bill and his permanent roommate, Rachel from HR, on a Disney cruise back in 2017 and became fast friends. We spent a ton of time in Florida parks together over the years, especially Epcot, where we enjoy sampling the finer things in life, mostly of the liquid refreshment variety. After years with the company and many more years as a Disney alumni with an annual pass, Bill and Rachel let their annual passes expire during the pandemic and took some time away from having standing access to Disney World. Even though they live just a short distance away, of course, with I-5 traffic, that can take several hours. Yeah, exactly. Did I say 5? I meant 4.
4.
Whatever. I-5, I-4.
3.
It's whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow, traffic can be insane. So Disney, of course, is a part of their personal stories, and I wanted to understand a little bit more on their thinking because recently all of that changed, and they're once again AP holders there at Walt Disney World, spending time in the parks whenever they gosh darn want to. I wanted to pick Bill's brain and get his perspective on what caused them to step away, what brought them back to the fold, what's changed for the better, and what opportunities does Disney still have. And with that, welcome back, Bill.
Hi, how are we doing today?
We're doing pretty good.
Nice.
It is the end of a long work week for both of us. Mm-hmm. We will warm up and get a little bit more energetic. But for right now, everybody can just deal with our mental deficiencies. Our brains are a little slow right now.
Yeah, they got to turn off and reset.
Exactly. All right. Well, you did say you wanted to come back on the podcast. Every 100 episodes, I think, is our deal. So you were on 77. Yep. Now it's 177. So we'll keep this up.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being available this week. Can you remind folks a little bit about your Disney career? I gave a little bit of a snapshot, but how long were you working for Mickey and Company?
Almost 12 years. So start off as a sweet streeper attached to foods. Worked my way up to a cashier, and then became a general teller, so the person in charge of the cashiers. Then I went on a TA to design, develop, and implement the POS system that they use in food and beverage and merchandise.
Right. So it's a temporary assignment and the point of sale for those keeping track of acronyms at home.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah. So lingo. So I did that and then installed in every single food and beverage location on property and anything attached to Walt Disney World except for the cruise line. Then I went on a TA for food and beverage management, and then I got a full-time gig at All-Star Sports. I was at Epcot for a while, and then decided that was probably not the best fit for me, so I went back to school and became something called a receiver.
Okay.
So in the middle of the night, I would run around different places and count food and order food. That was my job. So if you ever got a Mickey bar, there's some dude that rolls in at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and counts that and then orders them for the next day. So did that for a while. Exactly. Did that for a while. A few other TAs, and then eventually slid into finance starting in the Magic Kingdom. And then from Magic Kingdom to sports to water parks and miniature golf.
That's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So once you and Rachel had moved on, did you guys have annual passes right away?
I want to say within maybe a year or so of us leaving, because it was first a justification of it because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, we can afford it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a year or two at most.
And you still have friends. I mean, we know lots of friends,
Yes.
but I won't name names because not everybody is comfortable with names being named. But there are still current cast members who can get you guys in here and there and stuff like that.
Yeah. Access to the parks is never really an issue for the two of us.
Yeah.
So it's just the flexibility of having a pass holder.
Right. What brought you to the parks before the pandemic? So this is in the before times. You guys had APs. You're dinks. You are hardcore Disney adults, you know, former cast members. You're not there to bring the kids. Like, what brought you to the parks when you would go?
Well, originally it was just to get out of the house, you know, have dinner, have a beer.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, well, you know, I think the last time we talked is the magic changes as being a cast member. So, but there's still a piece of it. There's a calming piece to it. You know, like, I don't think Rachel ever went to the deep, dark, emotional side, but, you know, back in the day, watching Illuminations and making decisions, it was kind of our deal because it was one of those unifying things for us. And, you know, if life was hard or whatever, it was always kind of a reboot. And there's always a piece of it which not all ex-cast members get, but for some cast members, you can always step back and just say, hey, I did this, I did that. Yeah. So there's always a piece of that, right? Yeah. Not that, you know, it's 100% you, but there is a piece of it where, you know, there's appreciation that, you know, as you get older, you're really horrible about looking at what you've achieved in life and the things that you've done. And sometimes as an ex-cast member, you can actually do that. Yeah. So, you know, and we were both working our way up through the chain, you know, so it's interesting when you can see a POS receipt and you had something to do with it. So.
Yeah, and how long they get. I
had nothing to do with that.
I was just going to say, like, I always give Bill crap about how long the receipts are at Disney World. And in his defense, while he set up the template, there is a lot that has been added to it over the years. It's not his fault.
Actually, when we went in with the POS to replace it, and I was on the receipt side of it, the goal was to limit how much paper we would actually use. So that obviously went to the wind, and they said, hey, CVS and Walgreens, that looks like a good idea. So we're going to do the same thing. So, yeah.
How often were you guys visiting the parks before the panini?
I would say probably once, twice a month.
Okay.
You know.
And I have to say, having spent 3 weeks, you know, 3.5 weeks house sitting for you guys last year, I totally get the appeal of you've had a day. I'm just going to go to the park and chill out and enjoy the vibes and get a good meal and a drink and just people watch. And it's pretty compelling.
Yeah. Cause you know, there's always the magical families, which just make you laugh. You know, they're having magic, swearing and screaming at each other, you know, dragging their kids around. So that's always just laughable at best. But, you know, if you have the ability to go to a Disney park and just people watch, it's next level fun. Yeah. Because, you know, I don't care what ride I'm going on. I don't care about any of that.
Right.
So same with Rachel. So it's just funny to watch people.
Yeah.
You know, and like you see like clothing trends and you see people that are really connected by the way they walk next to each other. You see all kinds of stuff when you actually just sit back and watch people. So it's a good place to do that.
So the pandemic came around in 2020. Lots of stuff got turned upside down about going to the park. Even just logistically, annual pass availability was impacted in all the parks. You had to do this whole scheduling thing when reservations were introduced to, you know, limit how many people were being allowed into parks at a given time. Some of that's still around. What led to you and Rachel letting your passes expire?
Well, so our renew time was right around when they started saying, hey, we don't know when we're coming back. And we can either just refund you some money or whatever. So we opted to just punt on the passes just because there's no point in paying for something. And we got money back, right? Okay. So it was like, okay, that's fine. So, and they kind of shut everybody down. So you couldn't really keep your passes.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah, it was a little weird. It wasn't, you could keep them, I think, but for the most part, it was really an uncertainty of what was going on. So they were like, here's some money back for the last 3 or 4 months, and we'll deal with you on the backside because we don't know what it looks like.
Right.
But then the backside came, and it was like, waving the middle finger in the air to the annual pass holders. So,
yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'll say sadly enough, but I've done a lot of financial analysis of the impact of a annual pass holder.
Yeah.
And while it's easy and there's a stigma that goes along with annual pass holders and cast members as well, it's something that's just built into the history of how people think about it from an operations perspective, and it's not real.
Explain that a little bit. Like, go a little deeper there.
So there's always this thing that cast members and annual pass holders impact the day guests. And they make it so that they're lessening the product in one way or another.
Okay. You're eating ride capacity. You're making rides longer, that stuff. Okay.
All that fun stuff, when in fact, it's pure margin.
Yeah.
Like every analysis I did at the Magic Kingdom. I did it at the water park several times, and it always came to the same fact. And I used to fight and rally against this one because it's just one of those. Yeah, there's so many of these in our lives. We see them all the time, right? Like Walmart's bad because it's less expensive. Like all of these weird little things that people have in their heads that aren't actually true.
Yeah. And
this is one that just lives in the culture. And I rallied against it, even to the point where I got my team and when I was at the water parks to change their attitude towards it, and we actually got more profitable.
Huh. Because you were more open to having more like pass holders.
And cast members and just let them come. Who cares? Because the thing is whatever, this is where the flaw of that logic breaks down. Annual pass holders and cast members knows when it's busy, right?
Yeah.
We are not going anywhere near those parks during those times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to go when we know it's convenient for us, as well as still have a time. I don't want to go to the Magic Kingdom when there's 70, 80,000 people in the park. I just don't.
Right.
But I'll go when there's 30,000.
Right.
And those are the times in those shoulder periods they would block everybody out.
So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So everybody knows about October. Everybody knows about August, like the basics.
Yeah.
But when you look into the rest of the year, there's all kinds of that time where just open it up because you're built for it. You're built for volume. You're built to have this capacity. Anytime you can get that capacity, whatever shape, shine, or however it gets in there, is actually making you more efficient. Therefore, you can be more profitable. That fourth key. I think there's 5 keys now, but the fourth key was never really talked about, right? Courtesy show, safety, courtesy show, and efficiency. That was the fourth key that was never talked. But from a financial perspective, it is something you'd have to pay attention to.
Of course.
Yeah.
It sounds like, to kind of sum that up, execs and lots of decision makers get hung up on the fact that they're missing out on a day ticket revenue and forgetting the fact that even though, there's a little bit of revenue a peanut buttered margin of your annual pass, gets sprinkled into that day, per se from a guest that has an annual pass or from a cast member who's using a pass to get in. You're forgetting the fact that these people are going to go buy a $12 beer and a $10 hot dog and a $6 bucket of popcorn and a whatever. Like, oh, I need that $45 T-shirt and that $79.95 Spirit jersey, and you're giving them an opportunity to give you more money. Right,
and cast members that can afford it and annual pass holders don't get one $10 beer.
Right.
They get all the beers.
Right.
So
sometimes we get stuck in Italy having frozen limoncello margaritas. Like, things happen.
And how many of those can you drink without getting brain freeze? You have to know these things.
Right. It's just
these
science.
Are important life skills.
Right.
But the average guest is not going to do that.
Right.
That's the miss. Right. So if you think about the ticket thing, it's called the first click. The person, whatever park they go to, gets the first credit for it, whatever.
Okay.
they're going to go and they're going to get their first click, and then they're going to cruise around, right? And the husband that's from the middle of the country, say Ohio, yes, he wants to sit there and drink 40 beers. His wife ain't letting him drink 40 beers.
Right.
He drinks 3 beers in the 92-degree weather in Florida with a 95% humidity. He can't do it, right?
Right.
So, but the locals, yeah, I'm going to sit in the shade and wait for a breeze, and I'll sit there and drink all day. So,
Right.
And I know that I am a smaller population, but it is a pretty big population. That's
Right.
where it gets missed.
Right.
I don't need all the other stuff.
Right. And the fact that you're spending more on ancillary stuff potentially is making up for the smaller volume in heads walking through the gate, because you're actually going to do more. That's interesting. Yeah, I wish people would wake up.
And we were doing pretty good. I actually, I'll be honest with you, I got that to take hold in the water parks while I was there. And I started to spread that through other places, through my friends and stuff like that. But I would say one of the negatives of the COVID, and we're not going to go down that path, but, you know, profitability isn't always an interesting thing when it comes to the Disney company, especially in reference to the parks, because the engine that builds that company is the parks. It's the consistent profitability coming out of those parks.
Yeah.
It's never going to get the full credit it should. But ABC's down, ESPN's down, or the movies aren't doing so good. Where's the money?
Yeah, it's coming out of the parks.
Exactly. So that's always there. But then when you start to squeeze it too much, the pendulum shifts. So the guest experience goes down. And, you know, you make bad decisions, and it takes a while to recoup from some of those. So.
Yeah. Do you see, so recently, I don't know, you probably don't watch the Disney news and the Disney blogosphere as closely as we do, because you live there and you don't care about hotel stay, check-in perks and all the rest of that stuff. But in the last year, they started doing something where you have free access to the, whatever water parks are open on your check-in day for your hotel. So it sounds like that is somebody who has figured out, like, hey, I can lean in to this same kind of concept that you were talking about is, yeah, I'm not getting that ticket revenue, but I am at least encouraging somebody to go do something on that day where I can get revenue from it.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things going on there. I think they're trying to scramble a little bit too. So the whole Disney experience, the app, if you roll the clock back, all that's our MDX and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
The whole concept behind it was to save the guest admin time. Yes. So remember, you could get the free bus that went from the airport and made your luggage, and you get the magic bands delivered and all that. And they kind of punted on all that stuff. They don't do that stuff anymore, I don't think, really. I think this was one of those things to kind of placate that a little bit.
Got it.
And it's really sad because that program worked. It wasn't monetizing it the way it should be. And Bill is still on Friday, so I haven't turned my business brain off. So I'll apologize to all the listeners out there. So they weren't able to monetize at the level that they wanted to with all that. So that's one of the reasons it went to the wayside. But I can tell you right now, initially it was saving people admin time out the wazoo. The average guest before I left, when it first clicked on, and it took a few months, but I mean 8 to 10 hours. Think about that. You're going to go on vacation and you save 8 or 10 hours in admin time. Checking into the room and worrying about your luggage and all the other crap that we waste on. 8 to 10 hours. You got half a day of your vacation to vacation.
That's huge.
It worked. Just the monetization of it didn't equal out. And then we're going to go back to, annual pass holders will spend all day sitting on a park bench drinking beer. A guest that only comes every 4.5, 5 years is only going to get one beer.
Right. And some execs only see people sitting around on a park bench and consuming space that could be used by people who are actually paying a day ticket, and they're forgetting the other half of that equation. Yeah.
So, I have a feeling some of the people that listen to this are pretty intelligent people. It's the volume game. In business, volume is the draw, right? So in Microsoft, hey, if we can come up with Microsoft 720 and it does a backflip and does all this other intrusive stuff. It's just not good. But, you know, we can monetize that better.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the volume play that Disney falls into, and it fails a lot of times.
Yeah. So while you went several years where you guys didn't have passes, and I don't think, even though you had access, you guys were largely not even, you know, using friend access to get into the parks. Did you miss it at all?
No. I think I got a really bad taste in my mouth after COVID.
Yeah.
Being a pass holder, ex-cast member that could afford to have passes.
Mm-hmm.
The price changes in all the rigmarole and having to make reservations, of which are still there.
Yeah.
You know, we're still dealing with that. Like,
well, only the annual pass holders are having to do it in Florida. If you buy a date-based ticket, you're good to go. You can do whatever the heck you want. But
correct.
APs still have to make a reservation.
Exactly. So back to my whole further thing of the cultural stigma that goes with being an annual pass holder. It's still there, and it just, I could see even from the outside the pendulum shifting the wrong way. And I'm, you know, just like any pendulum, right? The best place for a pendulum is when gravity does its thing and it's sitting due south at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Anytime the pendulum goes any other way, something is being sacrificed in order to do that. And it appears, and it was apparent after COVID, the Disney company was shifting it towards the financial side, not the guest side.
Yeah. Well, and then you have dirty knowledge in that you understand what is going on behind the scenes, and the decisions are being made that impact what is happening in the guest experience that is on stage. And so it's more difficult for you to overlook some of those things and to forget that some of that stuff is happening.
Correct.
Alicia had the same problem. This is probably 20 years ago. She was actually on staff at our church for a number of years. And one of the things she did was to help put together the Sunday bulletin and stuff that was going to be up on the PowerPoint slides, which is, 'cause this is how old we are. It was just PowerPoint back in the day. And any little production issue that happened on a Sunday morning, or a typo that didn't get caught or whatever, like, she actually couldn't like extract herself. The employee brain could not get shut off from just, hey, I'm being here at church because I'm going to be here at church and have that kind of experience, and you know, and have a worship thing. So like, I get it. Like, it's almost like if you weren't a former cast member and didn't have an understanding of how all that stuff worked, it almost would have been better, right? Your guest experience could have been better.
Yeah, because, you know, like, there's a piece of it where it's nickels and dimes. They're big dollars, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
charging people parking in resorts.
yeah.
Like, you know, like, yeah, I get it. It's $30. I can do the math, but you're going to impact your guest experience for a couple $1 million. That's nickel and dime stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's measurable. The problem is it's measurable. And there's some executives that want everything to be measurable, and they don't understand the implicit value that some of these things bring, or the implicit negative value, like the impact that some of those decisions bring. All they look at is the bottom line, and they go like, well, if I can squeeze a couple $1 million out of, you know, this hotel over the course of a year, let's do it.
Right. But the problem is you can never back it off.
Yeah.
You make a decision like that. So once again, back to my comment earlier, if you look at the Disney company, where does the cash come from? You can't back it off. You make decisions that will be in perpetuity, always there.
Yeah.
And yes, you know what? There's going to be a 5 to 10 year gripe about a lot of people, and you're going to lose people because of that. 10, 15, 20 years from now, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, it wasn't necessary.
Yep. That makes sense.
You know what? Maybe Scarlett Johansson gets a little bit less on the revenue. I don't really give a crap Sorry, I was about ready to swear. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
this is the whole thing. Like, when you look at the microcosm of any organization, that's what's happening,
Yeah.
right? There's other pieces in the company that they're making decisions that are impacting things like that. So that's great. Pick a horrible movie, right? Lilo and Stitch, this Cinderella mess they got going or whatever. Like, all of these things, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? I get it. You're making money, but you're impacting other things, and who has to pay for it?
The parks.
And I know some of your listeners are probably like, he's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because, does a movie come out every day?
No. But
Exactly.
I will say to those listeners, you're also right. He is crazy, but he also knows what he's talking about. These two things can be true at the same time.
It can be. It's weird. It's one of those dichotomies in life, But yeah, it's sad. It's just sad, and it drives me nuts more than anything, because I think, if you had the opportunity to go to Disney back in the 80s, it was a weird time. The 70s was a weird time. The 90s, I think we were dialing in.
Yeah.
If you look at the leadership, Eisner was a interesting guy. Iger's been interesting at best. We won't even mention the C word. It's sad at the end of the day because it's not what it should be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to feel, and eventually going to ask the question, so I'm probably going to foreshadow this one, but I see people today going to the parks expecting to have to pay for shit. Like, you have to pay to go on a goddamn ride.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to Fast Pass? It was amazing.
Yeah.
And now you have to pay for it? Rachel actually, she will have a conversation with me about paying extra money to go on a fucking ride. Are you fucking kidding me? And this isn't going to make the cut. But anyways, next question.
No, there will be bleeps.
Like, seriously, think about that.
Yeah.
The Fast Pass system was amazing. MDX messed it up a little bit, but you could still work through it. Now it's, at the end of the day, there's always a dichotomy with Disney. It is always going to be expensive, right? And I wish that the people that went to Disney are the people that realize they can afford it, not just the masses. Yes?
Yeah.
They have let too many outlets over the years for everybody to come. That's fine. But you can't make someone that's scraped and they're killing it for their personal lives, but they're trying to do something better for their kids, and they're staying at the All-Star, just scraping to come to Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
But they can't get on a ride because their parents don't make six figures.
It hurts.
You can't do that. It's not right. Universal can get away with it. Who cares? But Disney can't. That's not what Walt wanted. That's not what he built. It was a place for everybody. It wasn't about that.
Okay, so I'm going to pivot here. Recently, you and Rachel got annual passes again.
Yes, we did.
So what changed? Was it you? Was it Disney? A little bit of column A, a little from column B?
I think that, personally, I needed to get out of the house a little bit more.
Okay.
I think she was missing it a lot.
Ah.
And it's a place for us to connect. That's the whole thing, is relationships are interesting.
Yeah. You guys met at Disney. You got married at Disney.
Yeah. The fireworks show at Epcot is horrible. They should bring Illuminations back. But, we've been doing date nights on Wednesdays. So we go to the park, we walk around. Exercise is never a bad thing.
Right.
We have dinner, have a few cocktails or beers or whatever. Most of the time, by the time I get home, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because for everything that I just kind of got mad about with people having to pay to play,
yeah,
I really don't like those people. So the Karens and the Clydes, or what's the guy's equivalent of a Karen? I see it all the time, and it's like, no. Relax.
So when you first had access again, what was your first park?
Magic Kingdom.
Oh, Magic Kingdom. I figured you were going to say Studios.
No, it was Magic Kingdom.
What was that like? What was that first kind of time back?
It was interesting. I called it. It was after my mom had passed away. And one of my favorite memories of something I was able to do as a cast member and other cast members taking care of cast members thing.
Yeah.
My parents, one of their favorite places to go was Tony's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this. I had my rehearsal dinner there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not an easy trick to pull off. You got to know a few people.
Exactly.
But I remember it was during the POS rollout. Things were bad. Things were not good. And my parents loved to go there. And we went there for dinner. So we got this. I don't think they do it as much, but you used to be able to sit out on the patio and watch the parade.
Right.
And the manager came over and he said, "Hey, Mr. Carlson, your son is amazing." He shook his hand and walked away. My dad just sat there. We watched the parade, and he's like, "You didn't pay for this." And I'm like, "No, we're good." So for the two of them, I think it was one of those moments. And as my mom passed away, that was the one place I kind of wanted to go. So, and the funny thing was is we go in there, and the manager on duty was somebody I used to be a manager with. So it was fun. It was a good.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So Disney World of 2025 is not Disney World of 5 years ago.
Mm-mm.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed?
Some things are trying to. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble here. They're trying to placate on something that's not real. I think in some instances that's the negative. The positives are some of the stuff that I think they're doing is somewhat decent.
Yeah.
I like the IP stuff. I like the fact that if you go to like Epcot, you have that atrocious ride that Rachel made me go on because I'm not supposed to go on rides. The Guardians of the Galaxy, which was smooth. It was great and all, but I couldn't walk straight for like the rest of the day.
Uh-huh. Tell me about it.
I had my card removed a long time ago, but she snuck me on that one. It's good to pull the IP into the Disney World.
Yeah.
Right? Because it goes back to the Disneyland's always going to change thing, right? So that's a fundamental thing. So that's good. I see that as a good thing. I think it's dated and timed, which is interesting. I think that they're pushing into a world that I don't know if it's sustainable for the long run. Hence, if you go to Six Flags or Universal or somebody else with these themed rides that are based off of whatever pop culture is, that's not necessarily in the Disney model.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting on the capital side, on the backside of these types of things. But I think they got enough time to be able to pull it off. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. You know, like
you're saying like
track.
Yeah, or you're saying like the Men in Black ride isn't the most relevant thing in today's culture?
Bingo. Go check out E.T. at Universal. Wow, I love me some E.T.
Right.
It's bad.
It is. It is. They also haven't refreshed it.
Yeah, I'm going to cry every time he says my name, but nah. So, but that's one of those things, like, and if you think about that arc, right?
Yeah.
It works for me. A new kid goes in there, zero context. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
10, 15 years from now, they're not going to have a context of who Rocket is.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting because they're introducing that, I think, even in all the parks, not just Epcot. Like if you look at the Splash Mountain thing, I think that'll be interesting to play out. I think that if you go to Animal Kingdom with the whole Avatar stuff, that'll be interesting. I think Star Wars will be okay, but then if you shoot over, Toy Story, is Toy Story going to have the holding power in 10, 15, 20 years? Like, who knows?
I don't know. I mean, we'll be up to Toy Story 12 by that point, right?
Exactly. So, it's just going to be interesting. I think so. It's good. It's good, but it's also bad. I see I'm going to use the big monetization word again. They're chucking, like at Epcot, they're chucking carts everywhere. They're building carts. It's not just a cart anymore.
Right.
Okay, so that's interesting. So now that's just some experience, I guess. So I see that kind of stuff. I would say the studios is held true to what the studios is for the most part.
Yeah.
Minus the whole Star Wars thing. But it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still fun, but there's always the piece. Like I'm I'm getting older, so remember when I was a kid kind of thing. So there's a
Yeah.
piece of that. That's always
Yeah.
going to be there. So, and then I get exercise, so that's good.
Is there anything that you really wish they'd bring back that's already gone?
Illuminations,
That's fair.
hands down, illuminations. Miller Lite being available in every park would be nice. I don't need Monkey Fist IPA. Ugh, no, I don't need that. But no, I honestly think some of the stuff is really good.
Yeah.
I would say there's opportunities that we'll never get to see again
Yeah.
because of cost, logistics, and the whole 9 yards. A nighttime parade at the Magic Kingdom, I think, is a necessity, but it's gone. I think a parade at Epcot is gone, and that was a fun thing.
Yeah. It's so now they're bringing literally this week with the 70th over at Disneyland, they actually brought back a nighttime parade.
Correct.
And you don't think we're going to see one in Florida, huh?
No. It goes against what they're trying to. Okay, yep, next. I know too much.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It just comes down to cost. Comes down to cost versus what it's actually servicing.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
And people no longer, and it might have changed, but what was found was one of the side effects of the whole Disney experience, that whole admin time give back, was the nighttime spectaculars really paid for that.
Yeah.
In the sense that people don't necessarily always stay for them. I would say real fireworks at the Magic Kingdom, most definitely. This TV crap is horrible.
The projections, yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. Spend some money. Like, seriously? I understand a camera, a projector only costs so much, but it's just not right. But
Yeah. Well, since I have you, what are your thoughts on the other big theme park operator just up I-4? Any thoughts on what's going on with Epic Universe? They've got a new park that opens here, I think officially within the next week or so.
One of the great things about being the finance dude in charge of the water parks, you understand things a little bit differently, and you start to understand the dynamics of what Central Florida is.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just say that. If you think of water parks in Central Florida, right? So we got the 4 big players, right? So you got Blizzard Beach, Typhoon, which is Disney.
Yeah.
You got the Volcano Bay, and you got SeaWorld's Aquatica.
Right.
Okay. The amount of people that come to Central Florida and go to water parks is a finite amount. It's not going to grow by substantial chutes and ladders. Just because there's a new park doesn't mean you're going to draw more people. Right. Those are the people that go to water parks.
Right.
And in my years at the water parks, as we essentially kind of competed against each other, you could see them. And back then it was Wet and Wild before Volcano Bay. But somebody would open a new ride. My attendance annually would go down because those people shifted.
Right.
Okay. So they would work their way around. If you think of it, it's X amount of people are coming to Central Florida. X amount of people are going to be in the water parks, right?
Right.
And depending on what's new, shiny, and fancy or whatever, they would bounce around. Well, for the first time, the Disney parks now have an offset.
Okay.
Because the volume that can go to Universal is higher. And it's new, and it's fancy, and it's shiny. So the water parks dealt with it. I think this is going to be the first time the real parks actually deal with it. I think that if you think of the average vacation of Walt Disney World is 5 days, there was 1 day at either Universal or SeaWorld. I think Disney's getting ready to lose a day for the first time ever in the parks.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. That was going to be one of my other questions is, do you think Universal is going to cannibalize their own parks, or do you think this is going to cannibalize off of Disney attendance, or but all the above?
I think it's going to cannibalize Disney. I think if you look at the organization with all their plans that they announced this year, they're trying to react. They're behind the game. They got to keep those people. And I think that there's going to be a lull. You can see it in the parks right now. if you go to the parks, you can see there's not as many people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot, a couple thousand here or there. If you think of Universal Studios as a 35,000 park, and then Islands of America's a little bit less than that, so maybe 50,000 a day, and then they just opened up a 40,000 park. Where are those people coming from? Once again, it's not going to be an incrementality piece to come to Central Florida. There's still the set amount of people, so it's going to be different.
How do you think it plays out?
I think.
Does it slosh around? I mean, are we in we've talked about the pendulum. Does the pendulum swing towards Universal for a few years and then new stuff at Disney opens and it sloshes back? Is it kind of, that's the game, right?
Well, that's the whole problem is now there's a pendulum that didn't exist before.
Okay.
That's my point. That is actually a good analogy. I know the CIO for Universal was somebody I work with at Disney. He came through when we were doing the whole POS thing. And from the onset of building Universal in Orlando was to truly take the scraps off of Disney. Even with both parks.
Yeah.
They would never, ever wanted to compete with Disney. For a multitude of reasons. You can understand why, right? Like you're dealing with Disney. You don't compete with Disney, right? And it was always the biggest joke because like Universal crew members versus Disney cast members, like we would be on them like white on rice, picking on them the whole 9 yards because you'd have friends that worked at both places or one or the other. And like there's that Disney, oh, we got you. And the crew members like, yeah, we know. We don't care. Let's go have a beer, right? And now they're like, yeah, we can compete now because we can take 80,000 people. Yeah. It's just numbers. These are just straight up numbers. And they've done a better job, Universal has, with their capital reallocation, right? They've taken their product a little bit more down the path. I think Harry Potter still hits a nerve with not only like our generation, but the younger generations. So they got a pocket right now. And I think Disney's going to feel it.
I think How to Train Your Dragon as well. Like it never really landed with our generation, but my kids, holy cow.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah, Toothless he's crazy. So, So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And I think that, like I said, back to the cash cow thing, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a reaction from Disney that no one's ever seen before. And hopefully they don't get back to the whole mass discounting and all the other crap that they used to do in the back in the day to pull the volume back. They can't afford it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. That's why they're talking about new rides and additional Villains Land at the Magic Kingdom and doing stuff that has literally been on the back burner for the company for a long, long, long time, but now they're having to react.
Yeah.
And they know it.
Yeah.
You can see it. That's why they're doing what they're doing.
Well, hopefully they'll be able to execute on some of those things a heck of a lot faster than they did on building the Tron light cycle, because that took forever.
Yeah.
And they cannot afford to spend 5 years reacting.
That was OSHA. So
I don't know. I figured it was all the construction crews were busy over Epic.
No, that was OSHA. But yeah, the ride system actually, to get a ride to work at Walt Disney World, especially if it's not off the rack, is not easy.
Right.
They have OSHA really kills them. Like the story about the purple monorail, right? And sadly enough, that's the one that a cast member died on. There was that malfunction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and for 5 or 6 years, in the middle of the night, that thing just ran around after it was rebuilt around the Magic Kingdom all night long.
Right.
So that it can click off enough hours before OSHA would reapprove it to get back into service.
Oh, wow.
So if you put that concept into a ride, same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, Bill, I have held you up from your Friday evening for long enough. I really want to thank you so much for sharing your insights and your dirty knowledge with the rest of us.
Dirty knowledge.
These are dirty knowledge. These are amazing stories. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Bill and I and Alicia and Rachel sit around and talk about when we're all together. It's just picking each other's brains. And this is why I love it. And Bill, this is why I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you so much for being on.
No problem. You guys have a good one.
Will do. Well, just remember, everybody, We are not affiliated with Disney or their subsidiaries. These are personal opinions and suggestions based on our own experiences, especially for Bill. He's not working for Disney anymore, so lawyers, stay away.
It's a different village.
We recommend... Yeah, exactly. We recommend working with a travel agent or contacting Disney directly to plan your perfect vacation. If you have questions or suggestions or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your Disney experiences, please send an email to podcast@ourmousecapades.com. Go ahead and follow us on social media at Our Mousecapades. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube. And of course, please give us a rating and review on your podcast app. It really helps people find us.
Leave 5 stars.
Exactly. 5 stars. Smash that like button, like and subscribe, ring that bell. And of course, don't hesitate to share us with your friends and fellow Disney lovers of all ages. Thanks for listening. We'll be in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.